means life here is a daily scramble to get water. There are still no taps at home. The Indian government claims it is changing that. Has it? We went on a journey to find out in India's Wait for Water on BBC World News.
Live from Singapore, essential business news as it breaks and a look at the economic news that will shape the day. This is BBC World News and Asia Business Report.
A growing risk of conflict along the Taiwan Straits. We look into what's at stake for the global tech industry. And we take a deep dive into the US earnings season as key American companies turn in their quarterly report cards. Hello and welcome to Asia Business Report. I'm Karishma Vaswani. Our top story for you today, the US's top lawmaker Nancy Pelosi is in Taiwan. The Speaker of the House of Representatives arrived on the island late Tuesday night. She's the highest-ranking official from the US to visit Taiwan in recent years, a move which China has said undermines the One China policy. And investors in Asia have been nervous ahead of this visit. Let me show you how shares in Hong Kong did on Tuesday. You can see they're down more than 2%. Ms. Pelosi's visit also underscores, of course, the island's key role in America's technology industry. Taiwan-made computer chips power everything from smartphones to cars and fridges. And a recent report showed that more than 60% of the world's made-to-order chips are produced in Taiwan at semiconductor firms known as foundries. And half are made by just one company, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which you may know as TSMC. So it's perhaps not surprising that, according to a Washington Post report, Ms. Pelosi is expected to meet with TSMC's chairman, Mark Liu, during her visit. Now, Dale Guy is with technology market research firm Counterpoint, and earlier he told me more about this company's outsized role in supplying the U.S. tech industry.
TSMC, the biggest customer base, comes from the United States. So as you said, from Apple, Qualcomm, AMD, even Intel, they heavily rely on the manufacturing in Taiwan, or say TSMC. And if you look at these companies providing all the systems in PCs, in smartphones, I would say Taiwan plays a very, very important role regarding the supply chain to the global IT technology industry.
Are Taiwanese companies under pressure from the U.S., perhaps, to produce chips more quickly?
I don't think that to be the case. In the short term, most of the production have been scheduled. So I don't think any pressure at this point to making more chips under any political tensions. So I don't think that's the case in the short term.
Dale Guy there speaking to us a little earlier. Well, one of the American firms that relies on Taiwan's expertise in making semiconductors has just turned in its report card. Shares of Advanced Micro Devices, or AMD as it's known, dropped more than 6% in extended trading after it forecast third-quarter revenue below estimates. The company expects revenue of $6.7 billion compared to analysts' estimates of $6.82 billion. Inflation and the return to the office have led people to spend less on personal computers, and that's hurting firms like AMD, which supply some of the key components in PCs. We've also had other major U.S. companies turning in their report cards overnight, and despite recession fears, Starbucks, Airbnb, and Uber have all unveiled results that were better than expected. With the details, here's the BBC's North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury.
We keep hearing gloomy predictions, talk of economies sliding into recession, and yet the latest quarterly results from three well-known American companies show strong numbers. Now, after the market closed, the CEO of Starbucks touted the progress it had made over the last 4 months. In fact, the coffee giant posted a third-quarter profit just shy of $913 million on sales of more than $8 billion. This was better than Wall Street was expecting, given that COVID lockdowns in China, which resulted in a 44% drop in same-store sales there. Now, in the United States, same-store sales actually rose by around 9% as higher prices helped offset lower traffic. Meanwhile, Airbnb benefited from people spending more on activities. The home rental platform reported record bookings and said it was buying back $2 billion of its own shares. While Uber's revenue, much like Airbnb, also got a boost as consumers continued to use its ride-hailing services despite the fact that prices are going up. In fact, the firm even said that inflation has helped them to recruit more drivers as people try to supplement their income. So, with central banks around the world trying to rein in inflation, these strong results show that despite all the gloom and doom, businesses aren't yet falling off a cliff.
Michelle Fleury reporting on those U.S. earnings for us. And we've also got PayPal, which reported quarterly results. And the news seemed to please investors, with shares of the online payments giant jumping more than 12% in extended trading. Now, this, of course, follows what's been a turbulent 2022 for PayPal so far. Earlier this year, the company cut its revenue forecast, citing the effects of inflation on consumer spending. However, the pandemic has led to an increase in the use of digital payments around the world. Earlier, I spoke to the managing director of Wedbush Securities, Dan Ives, and he told me why PayPal's outlook is again looking a little brighter.
I think it was better than feared. I mean, strong numbers, and then Elliott Management, the activist shareholder, you've seen that Pinterest and others, them taking on more of a role. That's really bullish for PayPal. Stock's down 50% this year, I think overdone. And I think this is probably what's being viewed as a big step in the right direction.
How has inflation affected PayPal, Dan, do you think, with regards to people perhaps spending less, given the fact that they're worried about, their salaries going forward?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, PayPal's a barometer, just like Walmart, as well as a lot of other consumer players are, Square, among others. And I think PayPal is something where they benefited during the pandemic, but now we're starting to see on the other side of this with economic storm clouds, you're really starting to see a bifurcation earnings season. Companies that are less or more affected, PayPal clearly on the consumer, that's really right in terms of the headwinds. But I think the theme we're seeing, as Michelle talked about, better than feared earnings is the theme in June.
When you look at the outlook, though, given the fact that expectations were so weak, as you point out, for some of the companies that we've been talking about in earnings season, what's your sense of how companies like PayPal in the digital payment sector might do in the next 6 to 12 months as inflation continues to drag on the economy?
I think it's going to probably take, call it 5 to 10% of demand off the table. And I think that's something that the street over the last 3 to 6 months has really started to bake into these stocks. Now, if we start to have a much more drastic recession, clearly the stocks and the multiples will move lower. But I do think what we're seeing here is that if it's a contained, we'll call it rip the Band-Aid off type recession and quick, I think these are digital plays, PayPal among others, that could really navigate this and ultimately maybe even be stronger on the other side of it. And I think that's what investors are going to see as they see the forest through the trees. But clearly, this was an important earnings for PayPal.
Dan Ives there speaking to us a little earlier. Well, on to another story for you now. And Robinhood staff is facing a difficult time. The retail trading platform has said that it's laying off about 23% of employees. The announcement sent its shares down more than 3% in extended trading. Robinhood's chief executive Vlad Tenev said the company is also changing its organizational structure to drive greater cost discipline. Robinhood's easy-to-use interface made it a hit amongst investors trading from home, I should say, during the pandemic. Well, sometimes in our careers, there can be a defining moment that really stays stuck in our memories because it was such a formative experience. Now, those experiences can be good or they can be bad, or sometimes even a mixture of both. The CEO of the Hard Rock Cafe has shared one such memory with us.
I was taught a business lesson in my early teens that changed my life forever. So when I was younger, in my early teens, I was working at a local restaurant. The owner, being a very aggressive individual, was upset at me because I was late for work one day. And he asked me why Well, I was late, and I said because of practice on a particular sports team that I was on. He actually grabbed me, threw me through a door, threw me down on the ground by this fence, and basically gave me two options. He asked me who was the best person on the team and could I beat them? And I said, no, I didn't think so. He asked me if I could make the Olympics. I said, definitely not going to make the Olympics. He said, I have two options. Go back to that loser team and be a nobody, or get my you-know-what back in there and work, and he could teach me the business. And that obviously turned out to be very favorable for me.
Well, before we go, I want to tell you how the American horror novelist Stephen King has taken on a new monster, corporate consolidation. The author was the star witness in an antitrust trial to block the $2.2 billion merger of the two biggest U.S. publishers. The U.S. Department of Justice called on Stephen King to testify about how the proposed tie-up of Penguin Random House and Simon & Schuster could affect authors. Mr. King told the court that he felt, quote, the move would be bad for competition in the industry. That's it from us. Thanks so much for watching. Do stay with BBC News.